some meaning in this crazy world. I found some beer. That's what I'm doing. I just went on a beer run. I decided to start streaming. I'm pretty excited about a couple days from now. It sort of feels like I've been on a damage control journey for about 5 years, and now I'm reaching the conclusion of that to where I can start living again. Which would be great. Somebody says you. I keep on thinking about this peroxynitrite. I'm like kind of obsessed with it. It's so mysterious and clearly powerful. It's clearly powerful. There is a precipitate in the damn filtrate. I found it today after the filtrate's been sitting there for 24 hours. I tried to filter it again and went through again. It's in the filtrate. I can see it in the bottle. I don't know what it is. I mean, it definitely looks like I don't know. It looks like hexamine. I don't know. I'm not sure what the fuck it is. Well, I appreciate that. Somebody says that they saw me as a great person. I appreciate that, but I'm really not that great of a person, to be honest. In a lot of ways, I'm really not. I'm not. I'm nice in the long run. Like, I'm the guy. I'm nice in that, like, if you were dying and it was too dangerous to save you, I'd still save you. I'm nice like that. Even if it meant, like, risking myself. But I won't, I won't, like, kiss you and tuck you into bed like most people do. I'm not that kind of nice, which is very, and it depends on the personality too. I really, like, bash heads with a lot of personalities. Even like, I'm talking like people that I like, There's a lot of people that I like, and their personalities just require me to bash them, like when we're engaging in whatever, talking, whatever. It just is the way that it is. But I'm not that great of a person. I do bad things, So I'm not that great. The slow, Lokes is maybe a slow jerk. Yeah, belly rub. Fuck. Man. You guys are just like fucking hedonists, aren't you? You guys just like fucking like sensory hedonists that just like love fucking stimulating all of your senses. Yeah, but being a good person, it's a relative thing. I mean, I'll tell you what I do like to be. I like to be a person that does what they say. And when I have trouble doing what I say, it makes me, like, I think about it a lot, like, or things that I said that I didn't do for people or something like that. That kind of stuff, like, sticks around with me in my head for a long time. Or like things that I try that I don't complete, that I try to do, it sticks around in my head. And what that does over time is it makes you really think about what you say. Because, like, if you actually want to say it, or if you just want to keep it inside and then just do it, like music being one of them, like the music albums. So like now, I'm probably like a good year. I'm over a year and a half now into it. It is coming along, and I do like it. I think it's gonna be really good. It's still slow. A lot of that is circumstantial. I just don't have the time to work on it all the time. It would require, if I had like a month straight of just working on it, then I could knock it out, like produce it and everything and be done with it. I just have trouble doing that. I don't even have like a studio space, so. Oh, don't miss that turn. Hiya. Wait, that's not reverse. Where's reverse? There it is. Don't you hate when you drive sticks all the time, like all kinds of different sticks, and you just fucking can't find that fucking reverse? You're like, I swear it's over here. And you're like, wait, no, that's a semi truck. Okay, here we go. There we go. Oh, dude. Oh, somebody did. Dude, where'd you get a fucking PKM kit? What'd you get for Did you get a Serbian kit? You get a Serbian PKM kit? What PKM kits are out there? Somebody said they just. I'm assuming you're talking about you did a build. You just finished a build. I fucking use the LMS all the time. All the time for short sessions while I'm trying to like squeeze in finishing this album. What's really slow? What's really slow in the album? Man, there's a badass fucking owl right here. It's really hard. I don't like singing or anything. So I don't like recording vocals around people. So I'm gonna have to build move a computer out and like set up a studio and shit. Or what I'll probably do, because it'll be faster, I'll probably just use a 4-track recorder and just do it in a car. No shit. From an estate sale? What did you pay for it at an estate sale? Did they know what they had? I don't think nobody knows you or anything. So, what'd you pay for it? Those Serbian PKMs are actually pretty good. They're pretty decent. They're kind of weird. I would prefer the like a Russian kit, but good luck with that. If you can get a PKM kit at all, you're like pretty fortunate. Especially if you don't pay full price for it, because they're very expensive. Fuck, you knew it. Damn it. Some bitch. Oh, 22? That ain't bad. That's not bad. These days, I would think it'd probably be more than that these days with all the shortages and shit. That's like regular price, I don't know, years ago. Like 5 years ago, that'd be regular price. I'll tell you what really fucking gets me are all the fucking MG42 kits that were out when I was younger, like when I was man, I wish I was just born a decade earlier. If I was born a decade earlier, it would have been good. Those MG42 kits going around for like so cheap, and 8mm all over the place, so cheap. People should get their fucking heads examined if they didn't get that shit. I mean, you're crazy. It was so cheap. I mean, you could have fucking, can you imagine just having, you could have stocked up an entire garage full of A-mill and then just had it and built like, you know, iterations of kit guns and had them, you know, like lined up in case one fails or spare parts or whatever. And then you just be buzzsawing like a boss. I mean, it'd be fucking amazing. SIGs in general, yeah. I mean, they're good quality. The SIG has you know, like in terms of manufacturing facilities that manufacture guns, like you know, SIG, HK, and Knights are really good. Like they have, you know, like their facility. I mean, there's lots of places that are good. What I mean, I guess, what I'm saying is that places like SIG or like Knights, they have they're just different. They're different. Like most of your gun companies are like, you know, they start from the bottom up. I mean, they all do, but they start from the bottom up, and then, you know, they have to, you know, they're gonna go through a phase where they're like filing on shit, like hand filing and fucking like, you know, a bunch of you know, which can be fine if you're an artisan. So like if you're a craftsman and you're good at what you do, it's fine. If you're just hiring people, you don't want to have stuff like that. You want standardization. Well, like, you know, that's kind of rare in the firearms industry in terms of mass production. Like most of it is very, you know, they have you know, they have to get a product. There's a company, they'll have a product that they get known for. And then they have to really focus on like guarding that product in terms of QA, QC, and how they manufacture it and shit. And you know, it's hard, especially because I think a lot of gun companies, they love their product. You know what I mean? So they love and are passionate about firearms, which is great. It's just not the same thing as like, you know, being a like if you're entirely efficiency and quality focused, which would be, you know, which would be a like if you don't have a delusional interest in the product, like if you're just like staring at your fucking product, turning around all the time, like, oh, masturbating in your mind. I don't know. It just seems like companies that are a little bit more down to business can churn out higher numbers or whatever. But the smaller ones will try to churn out higher numbers with issues. So, you know, their quality, because they get, you know, they've been mass producing shit for so long, and they produce so much in house that, you know, they have all their procedures down for how they make everything and get the quality part that they're looking for, which can be difficult. A lot of times places will have an idea in mind of like a certain component or whatever and a novel way to produce it efficiently. And then they just have to like deal with like what it ends up as, you know, like, you know, they're just like, well, fuck, we spent a lot of time on that and I guess that works now, but that's not really ideal. But I mean, that fucking works. So let's roll with it, you know? And that's how a lot of things shake out, you know, because at the end of the day, it's like the business is money. And if it runs out of money, then you run out of passion. You know, you're not going to be able to make any guns. Somebody's got A4 clone, bro. So and then somebody else says get rid of the A4, get an 11.5. No, bro, get both, man. These A4s, I'm gonna tell you right now. If you're talking about killing people, if you're talking about fucking killing people, the fucking A4s kill better than anything. These fucking things put out such energy. Oh, the 515 titanium housings? I never fuck with those. I've heard of those. No, I don't have a new car. Yeah, the A4. I mean, the A4 has certain issues with it, right? Like it does have problems with it, but in terms of just it's extremely reliable. It um like if you're shooting people, it's probably the most. It's what you think the M16 is gonna do, or what like the AR is gonna do. It does in a 20-inch barrel. Like in terms of dropping people and shit. No, I didn't get a new car. Can you pop up? Can you pop some shot? I don't want to shoot this motherfucker because this is I don't want to shoot it right now because everybody's sleeping. I'm not gonna shoot. If it was earlier, if people were awake, I would. Yeah, you go underfolder. That's a good one. That's a good car gun. A4 is not really a good. It'd be a good truck gun. It's not really a good car gun because cars are so gay and small. Like in interior space. You just can't really move it. It's like you have to grab it and get out of the car. To really use that thing on A4. I mean, you could shoot it out the front window, but then you're gonna be. It's gonna be like oh, what's that game where I don't know, like where it's like a cage with a stick in it. Yeah, I've heard. I mean, I've heard a lot about 77 grain. I just haven't. You know. Yeah, it's not a vehicle gun. A4 is not a vehicle gun. I've just got it in here because that's just the closest one that I like. I already had that, and I was just going on a beer run, so that's what I had. Oh, and so I just threw it in the car. It's definitely not a car gun. I mean, you know, you'd be hindering your mobility getting an engagement with that trying to maneuver within a car. That's what I mean. You'd want to grab it and just get out of the car and just go in the woods and then open fire. Yeah, I mean I do 10.5 usually in the car, typically. But, in terms of, I don't know, there's something fucking sweet about an A4. Now I will tell you this, I will tell you about on like on a like once you get past 14.5, I go straight, compensators on the muzzle devices. So for like an M16, I'll put on a fucking gnarly comp, you know, and fucking pow pow pow, and that barrel will just like not move. It just sits right there, and you watch rounds impact through your optic. Surefire war comp, no. The favorite. Well, no, I've shot war comps. I've never bought one though, but I've shot them. My favorite, I'll tell you what, my favorite of all time so far is the Nordic components. Which, like if you look at like, I know there's blogs and stuff that have done um muzzle device comparative testing, which, I don't know about I don't know about their methods, but they are doing relative testing. So you can get an idea of relativity between devices from that. because they're doing the same thing over and over again. And I think there's some that do have the Nordic components comp on there, and it doesn't rate very high. But I'm telling you right now, like the Nordic components one is fucking, it's fucking good, man. This one I've got here. You want to see what's on this one? Check this out. You'll like this. So I'm like really into like the super secret balling on a budget type stuff, which can be really hit or miss. Like if something's cheap and unknown, I'll tell you what I like. Can you fucking see that comp on this fucking A4? You see that comp? So that right there, that's a Damage Industries. They sell these for $12. So I buy like a 5-pack of them or something like that, you know, and I just try them out on different guns. I like them best on a 20-inch, and I like them on 308s. They're really good. Their 308 versions are really good. I've got one on an AK that I'm like testing, and I didn't think it was that, you know, it was okay. I didn't think it was that great. It was weird. On the 308, like a AR-10, it's really good. On a 16-inch gun, it's really good, and on a 20-inch gun, it's really good in 5.56. Like, really good as in, you're like, holy shit, I can't believe it was a $12 muzzle brake. Otis has 400,000 hour burn time in his grip. I mean, fuck, man. Somebody says comping a car is not a fun time. I mean, if you're shooting rifles in the car, like, you're having a bad day. The least of my worries is a comp. People make such a big deal out of comps. Now, it is stupid. If you have a 10.5, you don't need a comp. You don't want a comp on a 10.5. That's crazy. That didn't make any sense. You want a flash hider. You want the most aggressive flash hiding that you can get on anything that's short. You know, which is basically impossible. You're going to be flashing. You do not want any kind of comp because they don't fucking do anything anyway. They don't jump or anything. They just fucking hold still anyway. You're turning most of your gunpowder into a sound wave. And that's why it's crazy to have a comp. Now, when you get to longer stuff where you're getting a more complete combustion, but under pressure, at high pressure, that's when your comps come into play. But, I mean, when you're firing in a car, especially if you don't have any ear pro and stuff, I mean, you're gonna feel it. Front sight. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, no, okay. So somebody's asking me, red dot for pistol. Take off the front sight. Is that the way? I'm guessing you're talking about training with a red dot. So, we could fuck around with some H&O3. I was thinking. I'll tell you what I was thinking about doing. I was thinking about whipping up some peroxynitrite and then dropping it into a batch, doing a batch real quick of TNX and dropping it in there. That's what I was thinking about doing. To do it like separately, like whip up the peroxy separate, and then just drop it in, and then start the standard TNX reaction to like get to blue or whatever, and then just like boom, drop the other one in. Like after it's already foaming and shit. That's what I was thinking. That would be the next one. From an insult, I mean, TNX is an arsalt. Yeah. The comp will piss normal people, like regular people, off. But I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of like, you know. I mean, dude, in combat, you know, like I've seen people. I've seen a bunch of different shit. I've seen I've seen people pick up rifles that have like 203s on them, right? So they have extra weight, and the extra weight somehow it makes them retarded, like when they're under pressure. And so they'll like grab the gun, like picking it up off the corner or something, like if it's leaning against a corner, and all of a sudden they're going in an engagement, like they get attacked. They reach over, grab the fucking gun, they fucking discharge rounds into the floor and stuff because of the weight of the 203 and like how they hold the grip and they just put their finger right in the trigger wall, and then they'll be like walking and like pow pow pow, shooting. I've seen that. I've seen like I've seen during a heavy engagement, I've seen a guy with a saw like trying to get behind a wall and crouching down, and then he's like squeezing the saw and discharging it into the fucking concrete, and he thought it was enemy fire. Like he didn't know that it was his own saw discharging, like down in the concrete and shit, and he's just like trying to get smaller, like oh shit, oh gotta get back. And it's like, no, that's your saw. You're discharging your saw into the ground right in front of you, like, because you're fucking death gripping it, because it's intense, Like people do fucking crazy stuff in like under stress, like under death stress, like the fear of death, or like the bodily, it's not a conscious fear of death, it's like the body's, like the physical mind, the physical brain's reaction, like cognitive reaction to the threat of death. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about like the fear of like, oh, the bad guy doesn't like me and I'm scared to die. Not like that. We're talking like the body puts something in there, throws something out when it's like you're gonna die. Like you're about to die. Like no matter what, your body just starts throwing stuff out there, and it just causes all kinds of just bizarre, weird stuff to take place, and really fast too. It's like super fast. But so like people not under stress and stuff, they're like complain about fucking comps and stuff like that all the time. Like I see all the time LE or people that are doing like tactical shooting, whatever the fuck that means. They'll be like, yeah, I just don't know if I want to comp. Like nobody's gonna give a fuck if you're killing people and people are killing you. Like nobody is gonna give a motherfucker about your comp. You know what I mean? Some of the comps are so powerful that when you fire them, if you're within the effective blast radius, it turns off your brain. Like the concussive force will like, for a microsecond, like there is a like skip in your perception while it like rattles your teeth. It's similar to like getting punched in the jaw. If you get hit cracked in the jaw a certain way, it'll just fucking knock you out. It's like a reverberative impulse going through your bone structure into your brain and then causing a KO. It's like the same thing with a comp, depending on like the resonance and shit. So you can, like, if you're like in a hallway, like certain situations, like a hallway or vehicle or something like that, and you have comps, and not even they don't have to be comps. It could just be a regular ass, AR in a certain scenario. You can get like, every time you can be looking through an optic and trying to pay attention, and then a guy's next to you engaging something else, and when he fires, because of the reflective pressure of the gas hitting off the walls and shit, it will fucking turn off your brain for each shot that he makes. You know what I mean? And it'll take you, if he's shooting a lot, you'll pick it up. Like if it's just once or twice or whatever, you'll never even notice it. If you're like focusing through an optic, like that's how I found out about it. It's like focusing through an optic and so shooting like a 50 cal next to me, like a Modus, and it was like wham 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 wham, and then you're just like and you're like, wait, I can't see through the optic when the bullet goes. Hang on, okay. And you're like, wait, okay, it's turning off my brain. It's from the impulse, because the impulse, now that's an extreme situation, but it's the same thing with rifles. The same fucking shit happens. Like you see it sometimes in, like if you shoot a lot of 3-gun or something like that, and you're in interiors and stuff, or like mostly stuff with reflective pressure, where the gases are reflecting off the wall. Because if you have a confinement is it's a multiplicative effect on pressure, on like impulse pressure. But let's say, so if you've got comps and the other guy's got comps on your, like whoever you're with or whatever, or if you're by yourself, whatever, the situation is just you and another guy with a comp. The other guy's with a comp, his shit's turning off your brain. If there's a second where he's not firing and you can acquire a target and then you squeeze the trigger, your fucking gun isn't going to move and you're going to be ready for the next shot because you had a comp. You know what I mean? So it's like, like if the other guy's got a comp, he's got a comp. And then his shots are going to be fucking good to go. And he's hitting his targets. You can't hit, you can't maintain a target while your brain is shutting off or whatever. But as soon as it stops, like, which only, it's a very short duration. Like, as soon as it stops, you can, like, reacquire and you fire. And then, like, if you had a comp 2, then it's like, you're just gonna hit the fucking target. Like, or, I mean, you're not gonna hit the target. You're going to hit wherever your muzzle was pointing, and then you're gonna be right there, ready to go again for a second for follow up. Yeah. It's reflective pressure. So you're talking about open headers on a vehicle. Yeah. Okay. So you're in a fucking engine bay, you know, with confined space and shit. Yeah, and that's what that's what you're perceiving. It is, and when you're talking about engines, you're talking about a detonation in your piston cylinder. So it's a detonation sending out impulses. All this shit is like it was. So when you do breaching, which is a very compressed, very you know, that's like the side of aside from like military standard demolition systems. Um, aside from that, in terms of like breaching and shit, that's what they deal with all the time, and all the calcs that they do are based off of pressure. So like your minimum distance calcs are based off of your, like, that's where, like, you ever heard of RE factor and shit like that? RE factor is a very approximate and very rough, you know, um, what the fuck word am I? What word am I trying to call? I'm too drunk to. It's a relative value. It's an index number that's relative, that is very extremely rough, that encompasses a ton of different parameters that shouldn't really work out. Like, I can tell you right now that the history of the RE factor is too dumb to like they don't actually know what they're doing, but it works. You know what I mean? It's one of those deals where it's like they were way too like they thought they understood, and so they developed the relative explosive factor theory. But the only reason that it became doctrine and shit is because it does actually work. But they're like, explosives are so fucking dynamic and shit, and hard to understand. Like, it's just a very complex. It's extremely complex. I mean, what explosives are and shit like that are really, it's just electron transfer. So it's electricity. That's what it really is. When you really break it down, explosives are electricity. That's what's going on. But anyway, shit like RE factor and shit like that, they're using RE factor in an equation to calculate minimum distance. And that's mostly for that would be for like pressure usually, because a lot of the MSDS like breaching charges that you would make don't have frag. So it's not about fragmentation, which is very crazy. You can't predict it. It can go anywhere. It's not about frag, it's about pressure. And so, like, the minimum distances and shit are firstly for safety, just so that you're not like liquefying your insides and you just die on the door, like in the threshold, like, whoa, and you just fall down and die, and then all your insides bleed out on the floor. It's like, that's the first part. But the second part is like, you don't want somebody like, boom, what day is it? Who am I? Like, because the pressure is intense. And it's the same thing with like a dude standing in a fucking over an engine with fucking open headers blasting it, or like a brake and stuff. It's all the same thing. But people love to be dramatic, and they love to make things a way bigger deal than they really are. And muzzle brakes are not that big of a deal. They're not as big of a deal. I mean, you can start bitching when you're trying to fucking acquire target and you've got, a fucking Bradley shooting 25 Mike, with the brake on the Bushmaster cannon, and it's like firing. You're like, this is inconvenient. Like you were fucking my shit up here with that muzzle brake. You can bitch about that because the Bushmaster cannons they're so fucking cool. Those have wicked brakes on them. Look, if they put muzzle brakes on a fucking 25mm Bushmaster with fucking thermal optics package that just shoots through houses like they're peanut butter, and it just nails shit, from like a mile away, and it's no problem. Just like, wham! If they do that, then it's probably a good idea to have a muzzle brake. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. I think I lost you guys. Is anybody in here? Yeah, so MK says the word in Cali is that the assault weapon ban might get overturned. And it reminded him when I was streaming on YouTube, apparently I discussed gun laws getting lax so that weapons could be in circulation, so that citizens could kill each other more easily. So that is a theory. It is a theory. But who knows? I don't know. I can tell you that there is something really strange going on, and that is that what is going on right now. You can probably feel it. It's like everybody in the entire world knows that we are on the cusp of something huge that is like pending just a full fucking release. And everybody is waiting for it, and the tension is like building. And the reason that it's so drawn out and so on edge is because who's really behind this, and the people that are doing this, they can't fuck up at all. So you know what I mean? Like they can't fuck up at all. And so whatever they have to do to make sure that whatever plan they come up with is going to work, they're going to do it. And if that includes test runs, if that includes, fakes and psych outs and fucking jukes, they'll do all that stuff. If that includes like setting up a revolutionary fucking interior army that comes out of fucking nowhere, they're all about that. If it includes like just deploying China on some other country and just, fucking making all the countries fight, they're all about that. It's whatever their plan is. They're testing and looking at everything right now, and they're seeing what everybody thinks. And because of social media, this is what is the incredible thing that happens since 9/11. 9/11, the era of 9/11 was not really about the heightened terrorism response globally, and the integration of like cooperation between police and military for counterterrorism. That's like a secondary aspect. The primary aspect of 9/11, like what changed in the world, was that number one, everything that everybody buys for communications is monitored. And number two, they release social media. So all the social medias are monitored, and people go in there and just pour their hearts out. It's a way to, you're looking at the discussion of people, So even here, right? Like we're on Twitch right now. I'm doing a live stream. They can just go on Twitch and just see what people are thinking. So they can get a live pulse. Now it's a little different with video. It's not really practical, so they're probably not doing that. When it comes to like Facebook and shit like that, like people are on Facebook, that's the entire point. Most people, and by the way, what it is training people to do is wear their heart on their sleeve. So people that like frequently use Facebook and shit, they're typically like more dramatic. They're like really open. They fucking talk about a bunch of shit, but they self-censor, you know? So they're gonna toe the line of what, you know, Facebook puts out, which is what large businesses and the monolith puts out, right? Because it's like because they want to be on Facebook and like use that for communication to express themselves, they have to censor themselves in the format of their actual posts. So when they're making posts, they have to think like, wait, I can't write that word because maybe that will get me kicked off Facebook. Wait, I can't talk about that idea and flesh it out because if I did, I might get kicked off Facebook. So the first step is that they self-censor. The second step is that, you know, that self-censorship and that behavioral pattern, you know, replicates in their real world interaction. And that is the real like magic that's going on right now that they're testing and learning about. And the only way to do it is they can see how communication progresses on social media, you know. Okay. So somebody says Trump keeps talking about coming back and releasing statements. Yeah. You know, this is a repeated theme. I don't want to beat it out because, you know, like whatever happens is going to happen, right? Uh it is really drawn out with Trump. Like they really missed their way. I feel like they had an opportunity with Trump right when that like when that Capitol shit was going on. I feel like they had a very narrow window where they could have just popped it off and taken the whole country through Trump, and that they like held off because they were like, wait, I'm not 100% sure if that's gonna work, you know, and so they held off. But I think that was an error of their judgment, because I think if they would have just kept on stimulating the situation, like, boom, okay, you know, people get, you know, make way more people get shot at the Capitol building. Okay, Trump like comes in and wants to go against them and tell them to like, you know, not be so violent. Okay, they come back and are like more violent. Okay, Trump goes like, okay, we're you know, we're going against this swamp now, and then he gets direct action shit kicking off, right? And then yada yada yada, boom. Next thing you know, now you don't elect presidents anymore. You know, like that they missed a narrow opportunity to do that, and I think they could have pulled it off. I think what you know, what I would lend towards would be like that they want this period with Biden being so fucking dragged that, you know, people are like, man, this is like the future. It's going to be like this all the time. And then so it sets the preparatory state for like just, you know, Julius Caesar, which would be Trump, right? Like it's a Trump setup thing. Now, what doesn't go along with that is that number one, Trump's old as fuck. Like I don't know how old Trump is, but he's got to be at least 150. He's a lot older than he looks. So that's an issue. The other issue that's really strange is that they don't have any horses. Like they quit making fucking. They didn't set up anybody new to replace Trump for like you know, a hero for America. So you know, basically like they have stalled the American hero lineup. They got it successfully behind Trump, and then they didn't do another one. And so like the Trump stuff was really extensive. So if they're not going to use Trump, it would be a huge waste. Unless the only thing that it would not be a waste towards would be if they were just pulling data and they're just like, how do we set up, you know, the crazy mega hero? But I think they already had that. Like surely they already had that in the past, that formula, and that's how they got Trump. So it's difficult. It's difficult to say exactly what's going on. Now, I can tell you something that's really interesting. Something that's really interesting that Americans are not tremendously familiar with. So Israel is actually going through a lot of problems right now, and this is very we're kind of on like esoteric shit here. So, in Israel, there is a popular, they're getting like popular leftism developing in Israel. And so what does that mean? That means that basically like, your ultra orthodox are almost never ever left, right? In the I'm talking about in the the little Hegelian window that they made, their Venn diagram. The Orthodox are almost never ever left, and so it puts the situation more exacerbated in Israel, where like they're basically like any element of what you would consider normally like right wing politics and the orthodoxy of Judaism is getting pushed out of the government, and you were getting like Americanized Jew liberals parties, like socialist Jew parties taking over. They're not taking over Israel. They are becoming. They were not a serious player before, and they are a serious player now. And so there is an avenue of approach of these more liberal parties taking over Israel, which causes a lot of it causes a lot of problems with you can get extremism in there, especially with like crazy people that don't understand reality, like leftists and stuff. I mean, rightists too, but you know what I mean. Like somebody that's a socialist is obviously like they're insane. Like they don't understand what's going on, and they really believe in the lie, the whole lie. Like they're completely invested in it, and so they're very dangerous because that provides them power. Like their sense of power, and so they're willing to do more, to go further, to whatever, because they have a delusional sense of like what this world. Well, it hasn't happened yet. So this is just something that's turning on. I'm just saying, I'm looking. What I'm talking about is like I'm talking about there are some things here that are confusing, that are difficult to understand. One of them being, why is Trump like not in play? Like why hasn't Trump been played? That could be a timing issue. It definitely, no matter what the situation is, it definitely appears to be related to having a period where they put in Biden and everything is just like dismal, right? Almost like we got to have a bad time to contrast against like the good time, right? So it seems that Biden's presidency has something to do with that, where Biden has to be allowed to you know go in there and change shit and look terrible and shit, so that Americans can chew on the idea of like if you don't really get behind the right guy, you could have a whole future like this. It could be something like that. It could be a lot of things. It could be, but it could also be that Trump got abandoned, right? Like they're moving on and they have another idea that's different, and they need to set it up. I mean, it's difficult to tell. Who knows for sure? But it is interesting that they invested so much in Trump. I mean, not only did they invest decades and decades of work in the development of Trump and getting him where he was, but it fucking worked. It was completely effective. They had their social media integration and shit with all their guys on social media is like through the roof. It's ridiculous, Like, I mean, you basically can't avoid them. They're everywhere. They have so many paid people, like strategically boosting shit for Trump all the time. Like even now, it just makes it difficult to understand why they wouldn't play the card to the end because they've got it, or at least they had it. I don't know. To me, it feels like they stalled too much, and now they don't have it, and now it's like it'd be a poor choice to do that, to go all the way. I feel like right around that Capitol riot time, it was a little late. It was a little bit before that when they could have done it, but they just didn't build up the bad guy enough before that. That was the problem. Can you can Tech Trader's talking about Talpiot? Can you tell me? Can you give some real short synopsis to remind me? Because there's so many fucking supposed Jew plots. I can't keep them all straight. I forget which one's which. Yeah, so the Trump shit, it was that is a disagreement among Jews. So basically the American Jews are way too they love their new power where they feel like they're gods so much that they don't like the old power, which is who set up Trump. Like the old Rothschild house set up Trump. And the new power, which is your Jeff Bezos and shit like that, they don't like the old power. But they're even worse. They just haven't showed their color yet. So they're they're dumping Trump because they don't like that direction. Well, technically, Jews aren't behind everything. Technically, God is behind everything. So the Creator is behind everything. The Jews are like a catalyst. They're almost like a reflection of the rest of the society, all the problems that we have, but they're on fucking anabolic steroids in terms of their heart and their psyche and their spirit and shit. But they don't really see it that way because they view it like them versus the rest of the world. When you're talking about atheists, even atheist Jews and stuff, they view it they're very identified. They're very self-identified as a Jew. You basically have no reason at all. I mean, if you had one generation of your Jewish lineage go with I don't really believe I'm a Jew, it would just fucking disappear. They disappear. There is no connection, and they lose their connection to their identity as being Jewish. The only reason that a atheist liberal Jew would be I'm a Jew, the only reason they would do that is because they actually they retain some sort of pride about being a Jew, and so they or else they wouldn't say it. You know what I mean? Because there's basically, but what's crazy about it is the only definition of being Jew is coming from the lineage of the people that get declared Jews, and that's it. And there's no other definition of Jew. So people that are our culture, our Jewish culture, our Jewish history, our Jewish we're like the nations, all this shit. None of this stuff is real. This is just fake stuff, in the end it doesn't matter. Oh, so you bug me says probably the fact that the whole world treats them like a sacred cow, treated with the golden spoon. This is a part of their downfall. Oh, I got a poor connection now. I'm just sitting here though, buddy. I didn't even do anything. I'm just sitting here drinking beer. All right, treated with a golden spoon. So what you're talking about there is the setup for the downfall, and it's their obviously their own fault. The it says in prophecy in Tanakh, it talks about how their Zahav is their Avon, which is their stumbling block. So Avon is a stumbling block. Zahav is gold. So gold is the Jewish stumbling block, which is also simultaneously the power. So like the money is both the way that they come to prominence, and it's also the way that they fall. That's what that means. And it is true. And the reason why is because, you can see the if you understand what's really going on with money, that it doesn't exist at all. So it's an entirely abstract figment that has been introduced that people are choosing by their sight and recognition to do physical things for. So it's powerful for now in that, like women will whore themselves out for it. Whereas if you took something else that was like, if you took money away and you said like, okay, woman, go, degrade yourself to a stranger that you don't even know, that someone that you wouldn't marry, they wouldn't do that. Like a woman wouldn't do that, but they will do it now in certain cases with certain women because of the abstraction of money. But the reality is that the money isn't there. It doesn't exist, right? Once you understand this, then you can understand how in the future, because the money doesn't even exist, because it's not there, and because, they're basically spending resources to print paper to make it look like money does exist. They're spending money to make computers, to make a network, so that when you go to your bank, you're like, how much is in my bank? You beep, 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 beep. And then the fucking silicone talks to each other and says like, it's this much. You get this many bullshits in your account. This is like why that investment is there, is to keep this thing going as long as it can. But when you realize and understand and can visualize how it's an entire abstraction that is non-physical, then you can begin to understand how the entire thing is made by sight. So each human being's sight of all the worlds sums together the fact that money exists because they decide. What does that mean? That means that it doesn't exist, but people, conjure the reality by agreement, which basically means by forfeit. So by forfeit, people, accept the system of, the technology of money by forfeit, which is precisely what you see when you analyze global economics and economics in general. You see a forfeit situation, like a dollar is technically a unit of debt. And that's the way that it functions in syntax. When you break it down, you say what is actually happening when the money comes into the system and when it goes to somebody and yada yada, it's debt. I mean, you don't even go to a job to put a bid for work without accepting debt. So like you go and you show up, and what do? You work, right? And then you get the money, right? So it's like you have a debt because you're not even getting a straight trade or whatever. You're just working, Now, if you can understand this, then you can begin to understand that if something doesn't exist, but it can be powerfully, central to the harvesting of resources on a planet, the physical aspects of a planet, harvesting and pulling them out and turning them into a new shape, a new direction for all of mankind. If you could see that, and the fact that it entirely hinges on this abstract, non-real thing, you can easily understand how in a fraction of a second it could transition with the right sight and with the right event, with the right understanding of revolution of change in the way that people see, the way that their sight of all the worlds works. If you had a change in that, you could easily understand how people could suddenly refuse money and how it would be a major displacement if that happened. How, um, somebody that if someone's power is created by an abstraction that they don't really control, and if they build, a monolith upon it, if they build an entire beast upon it and take it as high as they can go in the air with their tower, you can, and if that thing is an absolute abstraction, right? Then you can understand that if something's an abstraction, it can be viewed like both ways. It can be like agreed that it exists or agreed that it doesn't exist, right? Because if you had a foreigner that was foreign to this earth and didn't understand any of this stuff and wasn't accustomed to it, and they came here and they're like, yeah, we have this thing called money, and if they were actually conscious and competent enough to analyze the system and understand what was going on, they'd be like, well, this isn't even real. You're just like pretending that there's money, And that's, you know what I mean? Like if they had like open, cognizant and conscious and free access to examine the mechanics of money, they would just be like, okay, this is all fake. Like you're just pretending that this is a thing, right? It can go away. The recognition of money can go away like that, and all it takes is an event, a specific event, or a series of events, or a period of time that changes the perspective of people so they think about things differently. Because at the end of the day, it's like, when you're, especially during suffering, because when you're suffering, it's like, yeah, you can think about the money, but the money requires this reinforcement of markets, of like all the people showing up to provide the goods that you can go buy, of all the things that make the illusion of money real, to where it's like, yeah, but I can go physically do this, right? There are ways that it can change instantly to where the sight of people no longer views money as real. And this is the entire, and this is in fact what it says is going to happen. Somebody says, I was a victim of a shooting recently. You got shot? Did you get fucking shot? Who shot you? I mean, don't do specifics. Just say like, I don't know, opposite sex or whatever. Or why did somebody shoot you? I'll put that. Like in a broad sense, that's not specific. Money, so money is backed. It's backed. Money is backed by the, co-mutual agreement of people. So like when people are like, yeah, I believe in the money and I'll fight and die for it. Yeah, I believe in the money and I'll show up to fucking work for it. Yeah, I believe in the money and I'll fight you for it if you don't believe in it. When you have that is what makes money real. It's besides that, it's not real at all. It requires the participation of everyone for it to be real. And it started off as something that's fake, and then it becomes more and more real as more people, accept it. What are you talking about? You were in a mass shooting? Wait, did you get shot? Did you get shot or were you just there? I don't think you should say you're a victim of a shooting if you didn't get shot. Just to fucking... I mean, that's fine. That's fine. Because that's how the news would say it. I'm just saying, like, you know, we want to... I mean, you're going to a future where, you know, shit's going to be fucked up. People are going to be getting shot everywhere. So it's like, you don't want to start off... We haven't even got there yet. You don't want to start off talking about, like, I was a victim of a shooting if you didn't get shot. Because people are going to start getting shot everywhere. Did you get shot? Nobody docs whoever this is talking. Don't identify him or ask anything about him to identify. Stop talking. Stop it. If you're talking about location and shit, just stop. We're trying to understand. I'm trying to understand what's going on. What did you learn about evil? We got a little bit of lag. I'm just gonna hang out and drink for a minute until we catch up. My comments are way behind. All right. What? We got a lot of mass shooting people. There's people. I got emails about people that were at Sandy Hook. Or that their like spouses were, and I mean, apparently there's, you know, mass shootings everywhere, apparently. Now, here's what we should talk about. Have you guys seen the Unbombing documentary? The Boston Marathon Unbombing? Please tell me you guys have seen that documentary. It's a good job. The guy says pyrotechnic way too much, but he did a fucking good job on his analysis. That's a good analysis, bro. Now what it was, the Boston Unbombing doc is a photographic and video map of the Boston bombing from everything that's public. So somebody went through and took, you know, at least what they could find, all the video and the photos, and then stitched it into a chronological order with multiple angles. Okay. Fucking latex. Okay, so let me explain this. So somebody basically took search social media and you know, professional MSM for video and photos of, like, you know, every angle, anything that exists revolving around the Boston bombing. And they found something incredible. Now, Some of it, it's a very long and very winded documentary. It's called the Boston Unbombing, like UN, like unbombing. Some of the stuff I don't understand about it, the guy talks super slow. He talks about pyrotechnics, about a pyrotechnic device about 1,100,000 times is how many times you're going to hear that word. Just a heads up. And you're going to be like, what is this guy? Like retarded? Just hang in there and watch it if you haven't seen it. Now, he did kind of a disservice to himself with that, but it doesn't matter because he brought the gravy there. So what's the gravy? The gravy, he goes through some things in the beginning that I probably also would have left out, like, you know, trying to identify from photos and video like prosthetic devices and blood packs and stuff. I wouldn't do any of that. Now, what is really the gravy of it? What is like unexplainable? There's no cover. There's no nothing. Like there's something fucked up going on. Is the fucking disjointed? It's twofold. It's number one, the disjointed MSM reporting on like event order of stuff, like victims coming out and shit, because he shows that, you know, the time lapse between when victims like leave the scene and go to the treatment tent and what the media says, which are two completely different things. Like they're not only different in order, they're different in time frame. Like everything's different, which is explainable by I don't give a shit. I'm the media and I just want money and we're just getting ratings. It is explainable by that, but that is the soft, you know, workup towards the grand finale, which is Bob the Builder. Bob the Builder is this guy that has a bunch of real estate in Boston that's a big Jew. And he shows up to the Boston Marathon bombing as a spectator. And his wife shows up as like a blood pack person. And she goes around and touches everybody that's injured, that gets like a picture taken of them. So, how this works is you basically have a bunch of video and photos. And you see Bob the Builder's wife go up to the people laying on the ground. We just got a poor connection out of nowhere. It's so fucking conspicuous, man. So Bob the Builder's wife, as the bomb goes off, is Johnny on the spot and shows up and she's touching people, like on the face and stuff. And it's not really known what it is because it's just a random woman. She doesn't have any bags or anything like that. She's got like a purse, right? That's it. So she touches everyone. It's weird. Her husband is off to the side watching everything from a barrier. So he's like watching her like he doesn't even know her. So he's pretending that he doesn't know her. Where it gets really weird is that the husband looks around to people that are in the bombing, like the key figures that the newspaper covers by name, like the Carlos guy, like the hero that like, you know, saved the guy with the blown off legs and stuff. He's like looking around and making like positive visual contact with the guy that like comes in and like saves the guy. He makes positive visual contact with people that are like moving wheelchairs and shit. There's like people that move wheelchairs in too early and then they have to turn around, like take the wheelchairs back. So it's like if you looked at it as a you know, real-time situation, it would be like boom, bomb goes off, everybody's like ah, going crazy and stuff. And then you have like somebody that's like wheelchair, and they bring it in. They're like, wait, no wheelchair, and they like turn around and leave with a wheelchair, with nobody in it. You know, like weird stuff like that, right? Now, where it gets really crazy is Bob the Builder and his wife, because Bob the Builder's wife, at some point in this, they get so like I don't know what it is. They have sick hearts. They just get so enamored with like joy of this thing that Bob the Builder puts his wife that shows up and is like a first responder, puts her in a wheelchair and then wheelchairs her by the camera. So like Bob the Builder's wife, which is perfectly fine, she wasn't in the bombing or anything. She's like, you know, apparently she's like treating people, and even though she's not a medical, you know, anything, it's just an old Jewish woman in Boston who's able to access every victim that is in, you know, the Boston bombing, like goes around like touches them and shit. later on when they, they have like the cameras videotaping, or the cameras are rolling while people are leaving the event. Later on, people the cameras are rolling as people are like rolling out to get treated at the treatment tents, and then Bob the Builder puts his wife in the wheelchair and then starts like wheeling her around while she acts like she's like supposed to be in the wheelchair. It's just like when you see stuff like that, and then you understand, like when you identify Bob the Builder, he's like a local mogul, like a land mogul from Boston, and he's a Jew. And when you see stuff like that, it just makes it impossible to explain. You're just like, it's impossible to explain. There's no cover for it, right? Like when you see Bob the Builder's wife sit on a wheelchair when she's not injured and then get pushed by Bob, and they pretend like they're at the bombing, like they were participants, that like victims of the bombing, and they roll past the camera. And when you connect that with like Bob's coordinating with people that are coming in and stuff, it just makes it where there's no explanation. Like there is no like, no matter how curb your enthusiasm you are, you can't explain it. Like they obviously know what's going on. They obviously have something to do with this. Is obviously a planned event. They obviously have something to do with it, and they're obviously extremely, they're not humble. Like they're terrible spies because they give away their shit because they're too proud. I mean, this is like insane stuff. I mean, they're basically making video evidence to warrant like I'm being murdered later when the general public like figures this shit out. That's what they're doing, and getting, they're basically like putting a target on their head and their kids. I don't know. The mass shooting shit is like impossible to tell. It's like mass shooting, bombing, stuff like that. It's I haven't had I have spent some time analyzing this shit. The really suspicious ones are the super suspicious ones are Michael Brown. The Michael Brown event is super suspicious because of the coordination with the National Guard and the coordination with Democracy Partners. That's what's super suspicious about that, along with the MSM. The so Michael Brown is really suspicious. Sandy Hook is really suspicious. What's suspicious about Sandy Hook is the isolation of the Lanza family. So like the Lanza family and both the kid and the parents and everything else, they're just like, they're basically like, it's like, yeah, it's, Sandy Hook mass shooting is so terrible. Like these parents, they're just all crying in the corner now alone. And like, they live in a dark dungeon. Like nobody go talk to them or look up anything about their past or anything. I mean, it's just a very, weird situation. The other one would be, the Sandy Hook. The other thing that's really weird about it is the like Posner. So Posner is one of the victims. So you get like publicity on the Jewish victims. So they show like there's a whole now Posner's like the guy that's like supposedly in a lawsuit with Alex Jones, or did a lawsuit with Alex Jones, because what happened was they ran a story. They basically threw Alex Jones back, years ago, said that Sandy Hook wasn't real through Alex Jones. Then they did a lawsuit against Alex Jones, right? And that was like the main spearhead of that in terms of like the public, like they can't just say like, oh, there's a lawsuit and we don't really have any real people here. We don't really have any real people here to be the victims and shit. And so like they have to have some names and shit. And so you have like all the major newspapers like Rolling Stone and shit cover this stuff, and they just talk about like, conspiracy theorists who think that mass shootings are real, and like they laugh at the deaths of children. And like one of them is this Jewish family, the Posner family. Here's a picture of their gravestone. Then they have a picture of a gravestone with Posner on it with the Star of David. So they have all this, all of this stuff, and it's just very, very conspicuous. You have a Jewish mass shooter, Jewish victims. I mean, Jews are only supposed to be, according to, Jew, you know, arithmetic, are only supposed to be 2% of the population at the highest. So either, I mean, the probability of the shit is just very low, Like either they're lying about the percentage and there's way higher percentage of Jews, or it's a lie, Yeah, JFK's limo being redone. I'll tell you what's crazy about JFK. Mic check. Okay, good. All right. So JFK. So I'll tell you what's the craziest thing about JFK. The craziest thing about JFK is his relationship with Ben Friedman, which is it's super esoteric. Like most people will focus, like if they hear about Ben Friedman and listen to Ben Friedman's hotel recording that he made that got released, they'll focus on that. They don't focus on like the stuff that he's saying and like there are certain things that are deduced that have to be necessary, like when you're listening to it because it's in 1961 or whatever, 1960, whenever it is. It's like because of the like history of events that haven't happened yet. You have to listen to it and like fill in the blanks, and like shit starts making sense. That's what's crazy about it. So what's crazy about Ben Friedman is that he's basically a guy that is like completely burned out, that is just at the end of his ropes, like gave everything trying to fucking expose this beast in the 60s, and like nobody would listen to him, and he came from the inside of the beast. So he came from that entire, like he was like in it, a part of it, or doing it, in his small role, and then like fucking jumped ship and left the farm. Then he spends all his money trying to, warn everybody and trying to advise all the presidents. And so he basically goes through like a period where he's like getting non-official presidential advisory, going in and seeing these presidents and warning them about shit the entire time. And with Kennedy and with Friedman's speech where he discusses all this stuff, you're talking about the time when Kennedy is just elected, and Friedman is thinking like this guy is going to like save the United States. That's what he's thinking, and he's like, I'm telling him everything and blah blah blah. And then he says what's really crazy. You got to remember this is 1960. So what does that mean? That means that you haven't even had Bay of Pigs shit like manifest into the advisory going down to Vietnam. So like Vietnam isn't really even anything yet. You've got French down there. That's about it. Vietnam isn't there. You didn't have Desert Storm. You didn't have there's a lot. You didn't have Grenada. You didn't have Panama. You didn't have any of this shit. Ben Friedman says in his recording, he says that he says that the Zionists are going to recruit the United States into destroying all the countries around Palestine so they can permanently retain Palestine for the world government. And that's what he says in the speech. He's like, their plan is to have the United States again recruited after being recruited for World War I and recruited for World War II. They're going to again rely on the United States to go into the countries around Palestine and destroy them to secure Palestine so that the Zionists can have it, so they don't have any threats. That's what Ben Friedman says. I mean, to me, that's incredible. You cannot deny the eerie predictability of somebody in the 1960s when you don't even have fucking Vietnam War. Your last war is Korea. Okay? So the last war at this point when Ben Friedman says this, and he's talking in front of the recording is just like him in a hotel with a couple hundred people, and then there's a recording going for keeping on posterity. So you just had the Korean War, you had World War II. United States is basically Jesus, and then we saved the world or whatever, and then you had Korea, which is just yeah, that's just leftover from World War II, killed them too. Okay, we're good now. Let's all get picket fences and green grass, right? Ben Friedman's out there doing this speech talking about how there's a world government and how they're going to cause the United States to fucking deploy into the Middle East to fucking make a fucking dragnet around Israel, which is known as Palestine at the time, to permanently retain Palestine as the foothold of their world government. That's his quote. He says they want to use the United States to once again, fight a war to retain Palestine as the foothold for their world government. That's what he says in 1960, and JFK is not assassinated yet. So in this, he basically mentions, without giving any detail, he says, I have high hopes for Kennedy. I think he could really take this country in a new direction. What is he saying there? He's saying that he's fucking spilling the motherfucking beans to Kennedy. That's what he's telling you. What I can tell you is that JFK had an exposure to this stuff that most presidents don't have before even getting into office. Because Ben Friedman associated and did business with John Kennedy Sr. before JFK was even born. So when JFK came around, he started advising him also. Because what Ben Friedman is doing, and what he doesn't talk about much, he doesn't really center on this, because he's centering on his points of what he's trying to inform people of. What happened was Ben Friedman served on the finance committee for Rolla Wells, who was the first treasurer of the Federal Reserve in St. Louis, Missouri. He served on that, cabinet or whatever, for the election committee for Woodrow Wilson, the president that got us into World War I, that signed off on it, right? Who was absolutely a Rothschild. Rothschilds had him by the balls. The entire thing was through Morgenthau mostly and Bernard Baruch. And, the finance committee was just one small part. If you go to the Library of Congress and you look up, they published the records back then of who finances presidential campaigns. Published it in the fucking paper. Public knowledge. In the public paper. So one of the big contributors is Untermeyer. Untermeyer, if you remember that, if Samuel Untermeyer is the guy who declared war on Germany in 1933. So Untermeyer is the U.S. Zionist organization representative that puts out a video in before World War II in the 1930s, has a movie crew come to his office and films where he says we need the entire world to help to destroy Germany because they're You know, they're trying to take us back to the dark ages and you know, yada yada yada. He says all this shit, and he has a video crew record it, and then he puts it out there. And he puts out a radio message as well. The radio message is no longer, as far as I know, the radio message, you cannot find it. There is no copy that exists that's floating around online, and I've looked hard. You cannot find it. If somebody knows that, fucking let me know. I've never found it. I've looked for it for years. It doesn't exist. There's allusion to that existing everywhere. Now, what does exist is that he made a like a video, a movie, a video, or a video recording of saying the same thing that's supposed to be in the recording at the same time. So he did a video, he did a like an audio bit for the radio bit, and the transcripts for the radio bit are available, but you can't find the radio. You can find the video. It's online. I've got the video. So, you know, this guy that's declaring war on Germany in the New York Times article, I think it's like August 6, 1933 or something like that. He declares war on Germany on behalf of world Jewry before World War II. Okay, and so what's crazy about it, this guy, this Untermeyer, in Woodrow Wilson's election, which is before this, you know, we're talking like 1916 here. He is like one of the primary donors for Woodrow Wilson's election, which is handled by the Finance Committee, which Benjamin Friedman works for. So what I'm trying to say is that all of this stuff lines up. Nobody ever took Benjamin Friedman seriously. Everything that Benjamin Friedman says completely checks out from sources 10 ways from Sunday. Like stuff that people don't even know about, that they haven't even looked at. I've looked at all this shit. I've looked at, you know, like I know where the fucking Federal Reserve building in St. Louis is. I live in Missouri. I know who fucking Rolla Wells is. I know what Rolla, Missouri is. Like all this stuff checks out. I know who the Morgenthau lineage is, you know? Like everything he says completely fucking checks out in a way that's both chronological, mutually supporting. The only thing that you would, you know, be able to hamper him on would be like his idea of what's going on, his perspective. But in terms of like what he's saying, he's talking completely from the heart, you know? So, you know, it's a pretty intense shit. That's what's fucking crazy about JFK is that, you know, somebody tried to come school him up and it ended up causing his death by schooling him. Like he knew too much. And that's what's crazy about it. And that this guy that was trying to warn him knew about the Middle East in the 1960s. Because surely he looked completely insane saying that then, you know. I mean, if you said they're going to go to the Middle East and, you know, make a foothold in Palestine for the world government, if you said that in the 1960s, you'd have to wait how long? Well, doesn't happen in the 70s, doesn't happen in the 80s, starts to happen in the 90s, you know, with Desert Storm. That's like your first time that happens, right? Then you have a period of fucking until 2001 where nothing else happens, you know? So if you said that in the 70s, in the 60s, in the early 60s, in 61, you would just be completely insane. Ben Friedman is not insane. Ben Friedman is a Jew that is like trying to spill the beans. No, JFK's father is not who got JFK killed. JFK got killed because of his opposition to world Jewry. Period. That's why JFK got killed. JFK was directly a front to world Jewry program in a time when the world didn't even know what what was going on. And he knew approximately, like, vaguely what was going on, and he was trying to direct it, like, direct his effort against it in his power. And he lost. Like, that is what JFK is. The mob, the only thing that you have to know about the mob in terms of how that entire thing works, you need to know two things. The first thing is that when the United States was going through a period of prohibition, the Bronfmans were running liquor in the United States, and so they made a fortune. That would be the Bronfmans are the proprietors of like they own a lot of Coca-Cola now, but their main stuff would be like Seagram 7, Crown Royal, alcohols like that. That's Bronfmans. So the Bronfmans, they are like the major, they made a shitload of money during Prohibition. The Bronfmans during the 90s were the Bronfman, Edgar Bronfman, is the guy that facilitates the World Jewish, congregation or whatever, facilitates the moving of Jews out of Russia into Israel. So like the first major migration of Jews from Russia after the wall falls or whatever into Israel, that's Bronfman. That's Edgar Bronfman. Edgar Bronfman's daughter is the girl that owns Nixon. Like the whole scandal with Stormy Daniels and all that shit. That's Claire Bronfman, who was like the financier and like the owner of the shit that, the Nixon shit that Keith Raniere gets pinched for, right? Claire Bronfman didn't get pinched. She just got off. Like, she didn't do any time, right? Just like Maxwell doesn't do any time. Bronfman doesn't do any time. These are the people that are a part of this, right? So that's your Bronfman. The other thing that you need to know, that so they made all their money initially during the Prohibition era when it was illegal to compete with liquor. Liquor was legal, but everybody was drinking it, so it had to be provided. And so, this is a good way if you provide liquor while it's illegal because people need it, then you can make a shitload of money, right? So who came out on top out of the Prohibition era and all the gangsters that, were shooting them up and all that? That would be your Meyer Lansky. So Meyer Lansky is the Jew bandit, Prohibition era gangster that ends up getting he's the one that really makes it out of there alive and doesn't go to prison and fucking makes millions and millions and ends up going into legitimate enterprise through the Bahamas after the Prohibition era ends. So he has perpetual businesses that get set up after that whole era. He's like the only one that really gets out of that. So you have all these guys duking out and doing crazy shit, and then you got the Jew Meyer Lansky just fucking comes out on top at the end, along with the Bronfmans, and that's how it goes, right? So that's what you need about Prohibition era. Where JFK got killed, why he got killed, is because of it. The primary reason is probably because of his opposition to the Vietnam War. The secondary reason would be his opposition to Israel, becoming a full-fledged nation with nuclear weapons and shit like that. The opposition to the Vietnam War, JFK took steps to pull the United States out of the Vietnam War when we were still in an advisory role. So when we had Vietnamese proxy armies before the U.S. Army, made the draft and went all in, we just had proxy armies through the Vietnamese with special forces advisors. That'd be like your MACV guys, right? So when that period was going on, there was a major battle early on where where some advisors got killed. Like they got overrun, and the Vietnamese locals got killed, and then they killed some MACV advisors. And using that incident, Kenny was like, "Nope, fuck that, pull the plug. We're getting out of fucking Vietnam." And he was like 100% getting in gear to just completely demobilize out of Vietnam. And that happened in I think that's in fucking like 1964, if I remember right. And I think if I remember right, JFK gets assassinated in like 65. He does the secret society speeches in like 61, I think, which is in line with Friedman, who does his whole speech in 61 also, if I remember.